Haason Reddick Trade Scenarios. We've got that. We've got Howie at the owners meetings, league meetings right now. And plus your comments as always. This is Eagles Talk coming at you. Let's go.
You love the Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! You love the Philadelphia Eagles, let me get a hell yeah! Philadelphia!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Eagles Talk on A2D Radio. It's myself, Chucks. It's Mr. OG Pete Evans and Rob Brinkman, as I call Brinks. We're coming at you. Chrome is not here today. He's over at Disney World as usual. But I'm not jealous of him. Yes, of course, I am jealous. But anyways, we're coming at you here, brought to you by Baggio's Bread, located in Mount Laura, home of the best of breads, tomato pie, sandwiches, and et cetera, et cetera. Mention A2D for 10% off your in-store purchase. We're going to get right into it, guys. And as always, definitely comment in. We want to hear what you guys have to say. But our poll question tonight is getting a second-round draft pick in return for Hassan Reddick would be a fair deal. Agree or disagree? Pete, why don't you lead us off? What do you think? Do you think that's fair for compensation to deal Hassan Reddick? Because a lot of the talk right now has been about him, a trade of Hassan Reddick being inevitable, reported by, I think ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. So it looks like it's inevitable. It's going to happen. But what do you think is fair deal? A second round draft pick, fair?
A second round pick that's cool. I would agree to that. That's fair compensation. I mean, hell, listen, let's be honest. And this is what the Eagles fan base, and I even on agree to disagree last night with Tom, Wilson, and Greg. And even on Tom was speaking about it with vetted with Irvin Fowler on Saturdays. There's a little bit different to switch up with that lineup there. But the deal that he signed at that time for a guy who had double-digit sacks 3 seasons in a row, we got him under market value. Now, there is truth to be told for responsibility on him and his team and his agent for signing said deal to take the $45 million for over 3 years. I think it was either $29 or $30 million guaranteed out of that deal. So if you get a second round pick back for him, cool. You know what I mean? If he can find a better deal out there, cool. But at the same time, I think the Eagles in this situation have already won. They hold all the cards, in my opinion. He didn't have to sign that deal. But also, once again, we said this last week, right? When we talked about Devin White. The league will show you what your worth is. The league will show you what your value is. Khalil Mack had to take a pay cut. You know what I mean? So you see these things, ain't nobody really jumping at the bit for these players. Who would have thought 3 weeks ago L'Jarius Sneed would have only got back a third and fifth? You see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Second round pick, when you look at it like that, when you take a bird's eye view of what the league has done and how these transactions have happened this offseason thus far, I'm definitely looking at it like a second round pick is more than fair compensation, in my opinion, for Hassan Reddick. I don't know. Brinks, how do you feel about it, Brinks?
I mean, I'd rather get a second round pick for him than pay him like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, or Micah Parsons. I mean, this guy had 0 sacks down the stretch last year, and he wants a raise. I mean, I've said it before. I mean, that doesn't sit right with me. And you look at these rule changes in the NFL that dropped either today or yesterday. It's a flag football league. You don't really need to be that physical on defense, because when you are physical on defense, you can get a 15-yard penalty, a fine, or a suspension. And then as far as L'Jarius Sneed and draft picks, teams just overvalue draft picks. That's what they do. They overvalue draft picks. They think they're smarter than everyone else. I can find another L'Jarius Sneed or another Hassan Reddick in the second round. They're like, no, you can't. These are good players. But Hassan Reddick thinks his value is up here, and it's not. So I'd much rather trade him than pay him $25 a year. He's not as good as Brian Burns, who got all that money from the Giants. He's not as good as TJ Watt. He's not as good as Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. That's just the facts. I know a lot of Eagles fans in the chat are going to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about because he's from Camden and he went to Temple. But this is a what have you done for me lately league. And Hassan Reddick didn't do jack shit down the stretch for this football team. A lot of these guys didn't.
Right. Not only that, it's funny you mentioned Brian Burns because Brian Burns is the one who made him expendable in Carolina. That's the reason why they were able to move off of him. It just goes to show. Now, I see a comment here already. We'll jump into it, right? Martian coming in hot already. He says, where are we at? Says Surtain's value is decreasing as we speak. If we can get to a spot where you could tell me I will give up one of our twos and Hassan Reddick for Patrick Surtain yesterday, I would do that deal. But it just goes to show, man, like Brink said, it's these teams overvalue picks. Not so much overvalue picks. They think they can do their own research, but a proven commodity. I'm not sitting here saying Hassan Reddick can't help a team. I'm not saying he can't help the current status of the Eagles right now going into the 2024-25 season. I'm not saying that at all. But for what his team and what his camp is looking at, and far be it to him, he couldn't foresee the future. Every other prime defensive end outside of him after his deal are getting paid more than him. But Brinks has a point. Last year, towards the end of the stretch of the season, he didn't perform. So, Chucks, I don't know where you're going to land with this. I usually kind of have a lean or a tell. I really don't know which way you're going right now with this one.
All right, so let me preface this by saying I looked at, if you look at kind of recent similar trade scenarios for edge rushers the past few years. So you got Bradley Chubb went from the Broncos to the Dolphins for a late first round pick. This past season, we saw Montez Sweat get traded from Washington to Chicago for a second round pick. They were all a lot younger than Hassan Reddick. I'd argue Hassan Reddick is better than Montez Sweat, but I guess that's like the trade-off you're going to take, right? What concerns me is the L'Jarius Sneed. I forget which of you two mentioned it, but L'Jarius Sneed is what the Chiefs got back for him. That was, to me, was a shocker. I thought, like, I completely understand that the Titans have to pay him, so that already is going to factor into the trade compensation. However, you've got to, like, I at least thought, like, hey, a second round pick, right? Like I thought, okay, he's like a first round talent, right? He's one of the better corners in the league, but since you have to pay him, maybe like a second round pick would be fair. The Chiefs got a third round pick in 2025. So that was a shocker to me, and that to me is what worries me. I think that I'm worried that because the next team would have to pay Reddick, that value, especially since we haven't seen a trade yet happen, I'm worried that the compensation that we're going to get back in return for Reddick is going to be not close to what we want. Now, if you were to tell me at this point, because of everything that I said, that we were going to get a second round pick back for Reddick, I'd agree to the pool. I'd say, okay, that's fair, because I'm looking at past deals and everything like that. And considering, like, Snead went for that, I think that second round, I'd be happy with it. Now, I would prefer, you obviously would prefer an early second round pick as opposed to a late one. That makes a huge difference. If it's a top 50 pick, that makes a world of difference. And it's like at the end, if it's like a pick number 60 something, you know what I mean? So that does make a difference. But at the end of the day, I think right now you got to consider everything going on. And second round pick, I think that's fair. He's 30-something years old, and it's true. Like, and I'm not trying to just pick on Reddick, because Reddick, he disappeared, but the whole line disappeared. Like, no one produced during the end of the season. So, like, I'm not trying to pick on Reddick, but at the same time, if he wants to restructure, get paid more, whereas Sweat, who's younger, homegrown, and took a pay cut. Well, pay cut. I know it's technically speaking, it's not really big, but like he took less guarantees to stay here longer because he knows of the situation. Like, why should the Eagles do the same for Sweat if he wants that much more? So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I know that the chat's starting to pick up now. So I mean, Martian's taking a shot at me, saying Czech still want to bring back Tracy. I mean, hey, it was better than what we got from Rashad Penny, wasn't it? Right? Like, what he showed in Indy was a lot better than what Penny showed here. So I think my point has been proven. Davey does say he thinks we get a third rounder max. That's what I'm worried about.
He's probably right. Davey's probably right on that.
Yeah.
L'Jarius Sneed is in the prime of his career and just got a ring. And what was it, like a third next year?
Two
and
rings,
seventh,
back-to-back rings, back-to-back.
seventh
Third in
round
2025.
swap. Like,
Yeah, third in 2025. It's crazy.
like what is that?
It's crazy. I was shocked. I would
Titans out there stealing, man.
Oh God, yeah, they made out well. John Adcock says, agree, you could get a late first, but I'd take a second. But sometimes teams want a proven playmaker rather than take a chance in the first. And Solomon Donaldson says the most we can get from Hassan Reddick is a third round pick. Yeah, so I think a lot of them they're starting to, people in the chat right now, they're starting to feel the same way. Where I think like the value right now is we're talking about a third rounder, but I don't know.
If you're out there listening, like, and you think the Eagles are going to get a first round pick for Hassan Reddick, like, you need to get a clue.
That's not happening.
Like, seriously,
No, it's not happening.
you need to get a clue.
Yeah.
Montez Sweat is a way better football player than Hassan Reddick will ever be. Ever.
I don't know about that. I'd say they're in the same.
Yeah. He's better. He's more physical. He's better against the run. He's just a more complete defensive end. It's a stone fact, Chucks.
I don't know.
They basically got the first,
they're
second
also,
pick.
They're also different types of players. Montez Sweat isn't a finesse player who runs off the edge, who can stand up too as a stand-up rusher. He plays a different type of edge than the thing. Montez Sweat can move inside. He's a big body.
Chucks,
which makes him more valuable.
Can't do either, and he wants a raise.
I'm not talking about.
I'm done with Hassan Reddick.
I get it, but I don't think you can say it's a stone cold hard fact that Montez Sweat is miles better than Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick, I'd say he's like a tier 3 edge rusher, and I think Montez Sweat is in that same tier. I think that you could argue, depending on scheme fit, where
Montez Sweat does other things for you.
That's so as a pass, he's not saying as a pass rusher, Chuck. He's saying as an overall player, Montez Sweat brings more to the table than Hassan Reddick, and he's younger, so that automatically makes him more valuable, in my opinion. I'm not saying
I like that you said more valuable. You said more valuable. Because
let's not get caught up on semantics, because we got other comments we want to get to real quick. Yeah, so I can tell you one team I could think that can give us a second for him, that'll be dumb enough to do it, and that'll probably be Oakland. But what do you think about this comment right here? So you brought up Montez Sweat. What about Danielle Hunter, who just got 2 years, $49 million, $48 million of it guaranteed?
That's too much.
A player like that,
very fair comp.
Danielle Hunter, I think that is. When he's healthy and on the field, he's better than Hassan Reddick. Issue has been health. That's it. That's it. Mr. Rudy Poo.
Hassan Reddick's on the field. He don't do nothing.
So thanks you for the super chat, Mr. Rudy Poo. He said trade Eagles get second, third for a trade for the Falcons for their second. So swap seconds, and the sixth. I feel this is a fair deal. I take that. I'm looking at. I'm just trying to look at. Yeah, I think I'd take that.
So we give up 53, we get 43, so we move 10 spots up, and we give up our third, and we get a sixth.
No, we get the third.
We get the third,
and we
give up Reddick 53 and 210 to get 43 and 74.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. I would do it. I don't know if the Falcons.
I'd do that.
Yeah, and the Falcons were one of the teams that were mentioned as a possible trade partner, and Arizona because of Gannon, which would be kind of funny because Arizona going back to Arizona, but
I know
familiarity.
Gannon looks like he knows what he's doing now after we ripped him to shreds, myself included.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing a little bit.
Rudy Poo, thank you again for this super chat. We appreciate you as always. He also does he says give it some sort of pick swap, and he does say that Hunter is a better run defender. So Danielle Hunter, when he's healthy, Danielle Hunter is a stud. I'd say he's better than Reddick. Martian Lynch says I would take that deal, second round swap in 74. Yeah, I would take it. I personally would take it. I just don't know if the Falcons would do it, but they are desperate for a pass rusher, so you could be. Yeah,
based on what we see around the league, like that's way too much.
Right. You don't have to give up that much.
Like Hassan Reddick is not good enough to be the exception to any rule. Like, sorry, Camden. Sorry, Temple. He's just not.
And it's amazing, right? Before we already know we got our ace in the hole waiting for us to bring him on. As you know, we do every Monday on Eagles Talk here on A2D. Really, like, is it shocking? and maybe we'll bring Les on into this question, right? Is it shocking that the restructure hasn't been on the table, where it really doesn't even feel like the Eagles are even considering restructuring his deal, right? Like that's a little like they don't even want to give him new money, right? So that's odd to me that we're in that position where they really didn't want to give him new money. Hey, Les, thank you for joining us once again.
Hey, guys.
God bless.
Yeah,
No
I haven't heard that they aren't willing to give him new money.
Okay.
I thought, and I don't talk to his agent or anything like that anymore because I'm retired. But my sense of this was they were willing to do a deal at like $20 million a year, maybe, and that he wanted a lot more than that. And then that's when they went out and said, that was the initial, okay, you go find a team that wants to pay you what you think you deserve here, and then we'll work, then see if you can work out a trade. And that's usually 9 times out of 10 when a team does that, they're like, yeah, you take that to some other teams and we'll see what they say. Like, you have no clue, what they're telling the agent. Maybe that's not the case, but that's how I always take it. Mm-hmm. You don't see a trade. There's been no trade. There's been no hint of any team that is close to making a trade for Hassan Reddick. What would they do to keep him? At this point, I don't know. The original offer was before they signed Huff. Are they still willing to even what they said they would do before that? I don't know. I do think, though, and watch them now that I'm going to say this, they'll trade him tomorrow. But in a situation like this, you often have to wait till after the draft. Because, or the night of the draft, when a team that's planning to make, the team that thinks, okay, we can get a pass rusher, drafting 17th, we can get one of these 2 or 3 guys that we really like, and then it doesn't happen, and they're like, shit, what are we going to do now? So that's how you get a guy like that traded. I mean, I don't think there's a team that's looking at trading for him right now that couldn't have done this 2 weeks ago if they wanted to do it. I think we're kind of in a dead period for that at the moment, but I could be wrong. I'm often wrong. And like I said, I'm not really that plugged in. I'm just kind of looking at it from an experience point of view, from what has happened in the past kind of view. But yeah, it's a tough situation. I would love to see them re-sign him. One reason is my son, Matt Bowen, out in Denver, got a Hassan Reddick jersey for his birthday last month from his mother and me. I'm really sorry, guys. It was a Kelly Green, nice jersey, Kiss of Death. That same kid, he never moved his stuff out of our house, by the way. There's a Devon First jersey sitting in that closet right now. I should know better now than to do this, but I didn't. And at $25 million, Martian is right. That was what he wanted, and that's a lot of money for Hassan Reddick. I like Hassan Reddick. I don't think, if you look at the top 3 or 4 defensive ends in the league, not just pass rushers, but defensive ends, I don't think he's one of them. I think they all give you more, and I think you guys were talking about this, than just a pass rush. They can set the edge. I'd like him, but I'm not quite sure where to put him, especially at age 30. He might be a young 30, in that his first few years there with Arizona, he was playing off-ball linebacker, and it's not like he's been getting beat up by tackles his whole career, and he's been pretty healthy. But it sure looks like they're going to trade him. And I'm afraid we're talking about a 2nd-round pick. I think that's a good outcome at this point.
Yes.
I think you could end up with less than that. I really do. Yeah. If I were doing it, I would have him play this year unless I could get at least a 3rd that becomes a 2nd if he gets like 10 sacks or something like that.
Conditional.
But it's going to be dicey. Can they afford to keep him and take that cap hit this year? I guess they can. Depends on all these other deals. They want to do a Devontae Smith deal and stuff like that. I don't guess it's out of the question. They just keep him around to play this year. John
Is he
Adcock
going to
says
show up,
if
Wes?
BG retired, they would pay him. I don't think they're really looking. BG's making almost no money this year.
Yeah,
I think it's
I
like
don't
4
think
million or something like that.
At playing BG like a half dozen snaps a game, just having him out there because they don't want all the leaders leaving at once. You know, I don't really think BG is a factor here in this. The depth chart or anything else. Nolan Smith might be a factor, and whether they really think. I'd love to know what they really think after a year.
Yes.
Is it just a matter of, okay, he wasn't quite ready to contribute, or is it, oh my God, we made a horrible mistake? And I've seen both, over the years.
Yeah. Could also be a thing where the defensive coordinator just didn't know how to use them.
Yeah.
And so, now with Fangio, maybe he does. Who knows? I don't know.
Like Brandon Graham trying to get on the field with Jim Washburn, and he wouldn't. No, you go sit down over there. Yeah.
Ages ago. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but who sets the edge on this defense? On this defensive line, who sets the edge?
Nobody. I said, and right off the bat, that when they were talking about, they had to make a decision with Sweat or Reddick, and I don't like having those two guys as it was okay having them, but having them as guys that were getting like 70% of the snaps, no. Neither one of them sets the edge. And you can't have that. I don't know what they're going to do about that, frankly.
No, because they had the perfect complement role player in Barnett, and he was a little undisciplined. They threw him away like he was garbage, and then he went down. They went down to Houston and started making plays.
Yeah. Oh, that is true, though. You're right about that, Robert. He went down there with D'Amico, and suddenly he doesn't look so bad, does he? That is one thing that
change of scenery
drive you nuts in the NFL.
Oh my gosh.
But see, Les, that drives me to my point that I always speak to. Right? We think our trash. Boom, Barnett didn't even clear waivers.
Right,
he gets picked up. So it's like, what are we like? What is it that we missed? And like, once again, I'll say Brinks is probably being a little bit generous when we say a little undisciplined. I mean, I think he had like 4 or 5.
They quit on him. They quit on him because he
they
quit on him.
A long time ago, really, and just kept him around.
They just kept him around.
I mean, maybe he's one of them guys who just can't function in the Northeast mentality of sports. Like, I don't know.
That's quite possible. I don't really know. He was, when I was covering the team, he was very, very difficult. He almost never talked. And when he did talk, he was incredibly guarded and incredibly sort of, I wouldn't say hostile, but, just didn't want to do it. Didn't want to converse, I don't evaluate players on the basis of that, but oftentimes when a guy's like that, it means there's something he's not comfortable with or something that he's not getting, You can't, I don't say that guy's a bad player because he doesn't talk to me, but sometimes that does. For example, I was scared to death when Isaac Suamalo first got to the Eagles that he was going to succeed Jason Kelsey, and that would have been a disaster for me because Isaac wanted nothing to do with any of us.
Right.
Yeah. Did I tell you that story about, when I was trying to do a feature on Isaac? It was like his second year, and I told it somewhere. I hope I'm not repeating myself here, but I started calling around. His dad's a college coach. I called, tried to talk to him. He has a sister who works in college athletics also. I tried to talk to her. And Isaac comes up to me in the locker room. Why are you calling people wanting to talk about me? I'm like, well, I'm a reporter.
Wow,
shit.
This is kind of my job, But he thought this was like, he went all Kim Mulkey on me. He was like, what?
God.
I wasn't trying to uncover any nefarious secrets. I was just trying to do a feature story. But anyway, I don't know what happened with Derek Barnett. For whatever reason, he was better his rookie year than he ever was after that, and I don't know why.
I wonder. I do wonder if part of it is because of expectation. Les, you've seen expectations of being a first round pick in one area. It just they don't work out, and then they go somewhere else where those expectations aren't there, and then
that's exactly right. Yeah, that Absolutely. Nelson Aguilar,
Mhm.
has had a very long career, a good career in the NFL. That's definitely something that happens. A few guys have come here in that situation and done better than they were doing in their previous gig. Hadn't happened lately, but
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I know we've been touching on Nolan Smith too. I did. Martian does have a question regarding where does an honest conversation start with Nolan Smith? So like,
I didn't see enough out of him to have any sense at all of what he can do. He looked like Marcus Smith to me. I just didn't. What did he do? He didn't get a lot of snaps, but the snaps he did have, what can you say that he showed? I don't know. He's undersized. But he had a hell of a college career, and people thought the Eagles people across the league thought the Eagles got a good value at the end of the first round there.
Yep.
In him. It's not like he was projected as a 4th round pick or something. So I don't know, Martian. I'm sorry. I can't evaluate the guy on what I've seen.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. This whole Reddick situation, what's your best case scenario moving forward for the team and your worst case scenario moving forward for the team?
Oh, that's easy. Best case for me is they sign him to like a 2-year deal for money that he's happy with, and they have a good stable of pass rushers. Having added Huff to what they already have. Yeah, I know they don't really have an edge setter, a run stopper, but still, you're back to having a rotation of really dangerous guys. If you have all 3 of these guys, I think you've really improved there. Even if BG can't play at all anymore, and if Nolan Smith is sort of okay, you've improved there. Worst case scenario is you trade him for a 4th round pick or something like that, or end up having to release him or some crazy, scenario. The first year I covered the Eagles, they had franchised Jeremiah Trotter, and he was very unhappy. He wanted Ray Lewis money, and they weren't willing to give him Ray Lewis money. And Trot went kind of ballistic about that. And he and his pastor went down to NovaCare and confronted Joe Banner in a physical manner. And Trot ended up getting released.
I remember that.
This was like my first week covering the Eagles. And back then, they really cared what people who wrote for the Inquirer and Daily News thought. They don't care anymore. They have NFL Network and ESPN. So I get a call from the PR guy, and he's got Andy Reid on the phone wanting to explain to me, why they have released Jeremiah Trotter. I'm walking into the house from my car. I go, Andy? Oh, okay. You did what now? These things can blow up, and you don't want an unhappy Hassan Reddick in your locker room. You don't want a Hassan Reddick who's, what T.O. did. You don't want Hassan Reddick saying, Jalen Hurts, he's a bad leader. He can't do anything right. Blah blah blah. You just don't. You want to get this resolved, and I just hope they're going to get a decent return if they are intent on trading.
Yeah, I agree. Fam, anyone out there have any questions for Les tonight? Anything else that we have coming up? Any questions at all? I don't know if have you dove into any draft prospects with the edge? Darius Robinson's name came up a couple times already.
Just a little bit. I really haven't thought that much about the edge. I've been looking more at the corners. Cooper DeJean sounds kind of like a cheese mustard,
I don't know, Les. I don't know.
White corner.
That is that was a hot topic last night. I was on Twitter, and like someone was like, what is one of the people I follow? Great Eagles contact guy. He was he asked, can Eagles fans give a legit reason why they don't want Cooper DeJean other than ignorant reasons? And you know what that means. And I personally agree. I don't care the fact that He's a white corner. He can play. He legit and he can play. He can also. He's versatile. He can play safety. So like that versatility. I like Cooper DeJean. If he is the pick at our first round pick, I would be very, very happy, very, very pleased with it. So,
and I kind of think, you want to. It's a real mistake to decide, okay, we have to have X with our first round pick when you're picking in the 20s, especially. But I think the way the draft sets up this year, it sure looks like corner is a good spot, at the 20s. Like you're not going to get. There's some positions, like apparently this is a real bad tight end draft, just to throw something out there. You can't be assured that you're going to get a real value at tight end where the Eagles are drafting. But you should be able to get one of those corners that everybody says are first-round corners. That's a legit thing to look at that spot. Or the offensive tackle, Guyton maybe. But I have not looked at an edge rusher there. I have to tell you, it's always possible. They love to draft edge rushers. They're not always real good at it, but
there's no premier pass rusher in this draft. Like there's a lot of like tier 2, tier 3 guys, but like there's no like premier top to blue chip guy. So that's kind of like it's hard to say. Mr. Rudy, who does have a question for you too, Leslie. Do the additions at QB tell you something about our offense in 2024? Sounds like a heavy pass attack. Run the ball coalition is going to be mad as hell.
Well, I don't know. They got Saquon Barkley, so we'll see. It's going to be a passing. I mean, we've been through this. You have to be a really good passing offense in 2024 in the NFL, particularly if you're paying A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Jalen Hurts. You don't do that to have a run-first team. I don't know that it can tell you anything, really. We haven't heard a word from Kellen Moore yet. I think I've made that point before. We have no idea what the hell the offense is going to look like. But I think they are going to be, much more pass than run. And I think most good NFL offenses in this day and age are much more pass than run. You need to be able to run when you have a lead, and run effectively when you have a lead. And you need to be able to pick up a few yards around the goal line when you need to do that, which the Eagles generally can do. Beyond that, I don't really care whether they run the ball or not. I know people are going to kill me but yeah, I don't. Right. I mean, if Jalen Hurts, if the offense is running the way it's supposed to, you can throw the ball to Saquon Barkley. You can get there a lot of ways. I
think for me, I think it's not so much the additions of QB tell you something about the offense in terms of ratios for pass or run. It's more so like the scheme that Moore has. It's a more West Coast traditional scheme. And then plus, like I know Greg Cosell, you all know I love Greg Cosell. It's one of my inspirations. Greg Cosell was saying how the signing of Saquon actually kind of shows you they're willing to commit to the run more because you're not going to pay Saquon all that money just to have him.
You're not going to, he's going to get the ball. It's just it's not clear that he's going to run it 25 times a game, but he'll have his hands on the ball. There's no doubt about that.
He'll be a focal point. And I think how we kind of alluded to that a little bit during the meetings today. And he talked about why he reached out for Saquon because he's a 3-down player. He's an elite impact player. So I think we can kind of expect. I think what you said, Les, is spot on. Like run the ball when you have to, but Laurie's always going to want a pass.
Right.
Pass heavy attack. And then for the last question here, Les, before you go, Martian does ask, do you get a weird feeling about the 2024 offseason like the 2011 offseason?
Well, no, that was so – you got to remember 2011, this time of year, I was down in Washington freezing my butt off covering the lockout negotiations.
Yep.
They had the draft before free agency, the draft, which was a disaster. Before free agency, they solved that literally as training camps were trying to open. So they were signing players as they were reporting to Lehigh. The first couple weeks of camp were just chaos, and the Eagles had squirreled away all this cash. They had way more cap room than anybody in the league, and they signed everybody literally and thought this would somehow work. And of course it didn't. it was so weird. If you go back and look at the list, and I don't have it in front of me because I didn't know anybody was going to ask me anything that would pertain to this, but they signed a whole bunch of guys. The guys they signed for big money were disasters, like Nnamdi.
Yep.
But they also signed guys like Evan Mathis for not a lot of money, who turned out to be really good players.
Really good players.
You know, it was just such a weird free agency. And no, I don't have a feeling like that. If there is any comparison to be made, 2011 was kind of a tipping point. In 2010, they had been to the playoffs with Mike Vick, and he had a hell of a year, and they just barely lost to the Packers in the first round of the playoffs. 2011, you know, they go into 2011 with thinking they're a top contender, and then they aren't. They were 4-8 and then won their last 4 games to finish 8-8 and save Andy Reid's job for a year. This is a year where the Eagles are either going to be top contenders again, or Nick Sirianni's going to lose his job. You know, I mean, that's how I see it. In that respect, it could be a tipping point kind of year. You know, they're losing all this leadership and ability in Jason Kelsey's case, certainly. And you know, we're going to see how they fit it all together. They do have a lot of moving parts, so a little bit like 2011, but without a lockout and all that crazy crap that happened around that, I can't really say it's a lot like that.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things that I wouldn't draw that parallel to or comparison to would be the foundation of what we already have is here. In 2011, that season coming off of that 2010 season, the foundation was a lot more malleable, and it wasn't as sturdy as what we have right now.
Right, and they made a disastrous decision that year going into the draft because they hadn't had free agency. You know, look at how different the Eagles roster is right now than it was a month ago. In terms of looking at the draft, you can say they signed this guy, they signed this guy, they signed this guy. Okay, they're probably going to be okay at safety. You know, they went into the draft in 2011 thinking they needed to plug holes, and they were drafting for positions like let's get a guard in the first round, Danny Watkins. Let's get a safety in the second round, Jaquan Jarrett. You know, it just went finally to the 6th round. They stumbled on Jason Kelsey. You know, it kept that draft from being the worst draft ever. You know, you can't draft for position. That's the year that really taught me. You just can't say, okay, you can't go in with a grocery list of we need one of these and one of these and one of these.
Right.
You have to kind of be open to what's on the board and what value is. You know, if there's a really great wide receiver there, and gosh, we were really thinking of drafting a guard, maybe you take the really great wide receiver. You know. They're not. I don't think they'll ever do that. I think that was Howie Roseman's. That was a searing lesson to him about draft and drafting for need that year.
Well, one thing I can say, Les, is that we need you here every Monday. Eagles Talk on A2D. We thank you so much for joining us.
Happy you want me to do it. So
as long we're here, as long as you'll have us. I mean, when you join. We're just tagging along at that point, you know. So, but we thank you once again. We hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday night, and we thank you for being on with us tonight here at Bowen on the Birds, the Eagles A2D on Monday nights.
And thanks very much. And I'll probably be writing something tomorrow about what Howie had to say today. I don't know if Lurie's talking. Usually Lurie talks at the NFL meetings.
Yeah,
and that hasn't happened yet. That would be more interesting because Howie just kind of said what he usually says. Lurie we only hear from once or twice a year. But if Lurie doesn't talk tomorrow, I might write about what Howie said today on lesbowensjohn.com.
lesbowensjohn.com. All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, guys.
See you, Les.
Take care. All right. So once again, lesbowensjohn.com. Brought to you by Baggio's Bread. Best of the home, tomato pies, cutlets, stuffed breads, mention A2D, 10% off. Listen, man, you guys are rocking. We got over 700 people across all social platforms. So if you're anywhere, wherever you're watching, just give us a like, Give us a subscribe if you want to. We appreciate it. It feeds the algo. But definitely hit us that thumbs up. We appreciate it. So where do we want to go from here? All right. So here's
I have a game.
Go ahead.
I have a game I want to play.
All right, I'm all ears, Briggs.
Yeah. So I have the edge rusher contracts up here. The highest paid guys in
He's
the league.
still on this.
I want to see because seriously, I want to see where you realistically think Hassan Reddick falls in line with this guy. I mean, the first couple guys are going to be no, like Nick Bosa, no. Ryan Burns, no. TJ Watt, no. Myles Garrett, no. Montez Sweat, no. You can put Daniil Hunter got paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit of a debate. Josh Allen in Jacksonville. He's better than Hassan Reddick. Rashawn Gary on the Packers.
I don't know about that one.
I don't know about Gary. Yeah.
I don't know about Gary.
Okay, Max Crosby on the Raiders.
Yes.
Oh, Max Crosby's an elite. Yeah, he's elite.
I'll take Bradley Chubb out of it because he was hurt last year. I believe he tore his ACL, correct?
Yeah, late in the year too.
Late in the year too.
Yeah.
Trey Hendrickson on the Bengals.
I would have to agree with this. Trey not only has been consistent, but he's been consistent.
Really good player.
2 different spots, and there's really nothing else on the Cincinnati Bengals D line outside of him.
Yep.
There is no Jalen Carter. You know what I mean? So
I'm not arguing with it either. Trey, give me Trey.
Then you got a couple Chargers, Bosa and Mack. Could go really either way. Joey Bosa should be, but he's like not.
Yeah, Joey Bosa's shot. He's not the same player. I would.
Khalil Mack's 33. Von Miller.
No.
He's cool.
Von Miller, no.
Yeah, he had a horrible year.
Grenard on Minnesota.
See, Grenard, I'd rather have.
He just signed there too, right? This year. He just signed there because he was in Houston before.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
He's ascending player. So if you're talking about moving forward, I'd rather have Grenard because he's younger. He's ascending. Whereas we all agree Reddick's on the downturn of his career now. He's past his prime. So yeah, I'd rather have Grenard moving forward.
Okay, Harold Landry on the Titans.
I'd rather have Hassan than Harold.
I almost have rather have Hassan.
We're getting into that. We're getting into that no minute, but Bryce Huff makes more money than Hassan Reddick. I don't even know what to make of Bryce Huff. Like, what is he? He's
We'll
a situational.
Guess
he's
what?
Like a situational guy that can't set an edge that we paid all this money to.
Well, I think he'll be better at setting the edge coming from the system that he came from in New York, and the responsibilities that are going to be more in line with Fangio, closer to what Salah's concepts were.
And
Reddick go ahead.
Yeah, so and it's with Huff. I don't like. We have to be correct in how we phrase it. It's not. I don't think we can assume and just say he can't. It's more of we haven't seen him do it because he hasn't been given that playing time. Like people think that like he didn't get playing time because he wasn't that good. No, they look at the Jets roster and the other on that roster. They invested a lot in those other guys. The undrafted Bryce Huff isn't going to come in and get automatically playing time over them. He had to earn his spot. And Robert Saleh talked about it in the league in the meetings today. How he's an ascending player, and he said that like Huff really shaped his body after his rookie year. He shaped his body in a way where he would be stronger. And just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean he can't. So it's with Huff, it's tough because there's so much projection. Because when he's going to be given a much bigger workload moving forward with us because he's getting paid like he's going to be a starter. So he's going to get.
They're paying him to do it.
They're paying him to do it. So we don't know for sure what effect that increased workload will have on him. He could fizzle out, or he could shine and be a star in the making. We don't know. It's projection, but like I don't want to. I always want to correct people saying it's not that he can't. We just haven't seen if he can do it yet. Like we have to wait and see, and that's part of the risk. It's projection.
And then you have Alex Highsmith on Pittsburgh, who I would take over Reddick.
Cheaper too.
And I mean, you're kind of getting into that. We're down to like the Hassan Reddick neighborhood of payment on his current deal. And then it's I'm gonna pronounce not the guy on the Seahawks, Nwuzu, who's
And Wosu.
pretty
Oh,
good.
Nwosu.
Nwosu.
Yeah. Uchenna Wosu.
And then
Nwosu.
Mhm.
I like me some
and
Uchenna.
then you have Reddick. So like there was maybe 5 guys ahead of Reddick that like we said we'd rather have Reddick than everyone else we thought was better than, and it wasn't really. I thought there was gonna be way more debate about it. There really wasn't.
You're also talking about contracts because like it's tough to measure a play. Like there's a difference between how good a player is and what they're getting paid. Like just because you're a higher paid player doesn't mean you're better. Matt Ryan at one point was the highest paid quarterback. Was he ever the best quarterback? Like that's not how like the market
won the
works.
MVP. So one year he was the best player. Yes.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's really believed that he was
like throughout the length of his contract, he wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't. So like you can't really go like you can. It's also tricky because it depends when they signed it, and it also depends on like what is the trajectory moving forward, and are they getting paid based on what they have been? I think my whole thing has just been Reddick is a tier 3 edge rusher. That's what he is. Like right. I don't like going into linear rankings. Pete knows this. Like ranking him linear is not, to me is not accurate. It's not an accurate way of judging a player compared to others. Like I tier them. So if you have elite guys like Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and then you have the tier 2 guys, then I think Hassan Reddick is in that tier 3. He's firmly in that tier 3. Now it's also harder because you have a guy like Grenard that you mentioned. You have a guy like Huff. Of course, you're going to pay them because they're on you'd rather have them moving forward because they're ascending. They're much younger. I'm not going to commit 3-4 years to Hassan Reddick when he's 30-something. He's like 30 years old. So that doesn't. I wouldn't do that. But it doesn't mean he's shown to be a worse player than some guys. I again, I'm going to reiterate. He's in the same tier as Montez Sweat to me. They're different styles of players. Montez Sweat is not as good as some of the other guys in tier 1 and tier 2. I don't see that, but it doesn't mean he's a bad player. They do different things. They're used differently.
This basically sums up my opinion of Hassan Reddick, the angry bear right here. One trick pony. Either he's getting sacks or he's not. He's not stuffing the run. He's not covering anybody.
No tap,
so if you're going to go 2 months without getting a sack when we need you, I'm not giving you $25 million a year. You can go kick rocks.
Play on the deal that you're on.
And to kind of like flip it, this is why also like I don't disagree with Angry Bear, and this is kind of why like people online, a lot of Eagles fans assume that Reddick is he's miles ahead of a better player than Josh Sweat. No, he's not. They're closer in talent than a lot of Eagles fans realize. It's not that far of a gap. If you think Reddick's better by a little bit, I think that's fair. But I don't think it's really that the gap between them is that far.
And here's a prime example, right? I'll give you a younger Hassan Reddick, Chase Young. The league has showed you what they value Chase Young at. Mm-hmm. Who got the higher pick in return, Montez Sweat or Chase Young? Montez Sweat.
Montez Sweat.
You know what I mean? Because he's just more versatile. The more you can do, the more you bring to the table, and you can still do these other things, then I mean, it's one of those things like I'm like Hassan. Either play out the deal that you want, find a trade partner, or if they find something better, where I'm thinking to myself, if they can trade off of Hassan, whatever, if they do get that extra second back or they get that extra third back, take that and package that to go get me Surtain. You see what I'm saying? And then we can go from there.
Weaver did ask a while back. He said, "What would you give up for Surtain?" Like a lot. I give up a lot.
A decent amount.
A lot.
I'd be the worst GM because these guys would come into my office and ask for more money, and I would laugh in their face. I would just laugh in their face.
You'd be like Joe Banner.
Rob Banner.
Rob Banner.
That guy's a loser. That was such a great story Les told because I mean Joe Banner. I mean, talk about a hate the face guy. I mean, he ruined the TO situation. He ruined the cap. He ruined the cap every year by being a nerd. Like, do you know? Like, all you had to do was get Donovan one receiver in his prime. Not even a guy like TO. Like a guy that was like okay, that wasn't stinks in or trash, and you would have won.
Couldn't do it. Yeah,
it's like unbelievable. You let guys like Ricky Manning Jr. like get career paydays off you in the NFC Championship game. Crazy. That guy sucked.
Hey, you
like
out of all the
I
players that
like
we
that
should have
guy.
re-signed, you're going to re-sign Little John Smith. Come on, like I can't.
Yo,
Give me
I
a
love
six.
him Latu. I am not
Latu,
going
Latu.
to. If he was a pick for us in the late first round, I would be happy. Latu is. I like him the most.
Really that big?
Yeah,
Is he really
he's a
that
big
big?
dude.
You should see
him. There's I mean, we don't need a defensive tackle but the kid from Texas, God, I think I want to say, is it Devondre Sweat? Is that his name?
Or Devondre? Yeah.
Yeah, he's like
I don't care what position they pick. I want them to pick the best player. Free agency is for when you have your grocery list.
Which we will start diving into the draft talk next week, which is exciting. Wrapping up free agency.
He's another one.
Byron Murphy's another one.
Murphy, yeah.
Yeah, chat. Those listening, if you're aching for draft talk, that'll start next week. So we appreciate you coming in and being with us. We've got so much. You guys are always good with the chat. Keep it coming in. But I'll ask you guys this in our final 10 minutes. What do you guys think is the biggest needs or now remaining? No, I'm not talking about like what do they have to draft in the first round. I'm just talking about overall, like what are the biggest positional needs that you need to see addressed in the draft at some point to some degree?
And the draft for free agent, or just in general?
Oh, in general. Let's say in general. What are the biggest needs now? What have they done enough What work? I obviously that's a stupid question. Of course,
what's enough? Like what is enough? Enough is
never
relative.
enough.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Never enough.
What are you still looking at on this
corner? Corner.
Yeah, I agree. Corner linebacker.
Linebacker. Yeah, corner. I would say corner.
You're good in the linebacker room. You're good with Devin Lloyd and Kobe Dean as is.
They don't care. I'm ranking in order.
Oh no, I'm not ranking in order. Sorry, I didn't. Okay. I'm not ranking them. I'm just saying like what are the biggest things overall? Like we mentioned, we agree on corner. I think linebacker absolutely. Angry Bear just says corner and linebackers.
I mean, I brought it up with Les.
Speed at corner too. Speed at corner.
I brought it up with Les. I mean, you have no one on this defensive line that sets the edge. Nope. No one. You just have a bunch of freelancing maniacs that just want to pile up sack numbers. That's not good because we did see that in 2011 with the wide nines and Babin and all those clowns that we had, and that this line, which is supposed to be like the focal point of this team, like we should have already had this all set up from how we drafted last year, and we really don't, which concerns me. But I mean, I'd like to see another receiver. I don't know. I'd like to hear Kellen Moore talk.
I would say big is not just a receiver, Brinks, but a young receiver, like a young and upcoming receiver. You need that.
I will say this, guys, and we'll talk about it in next week or the week after. I really think the Eagles, depending who falls and everything, but like I think it's very possible, and it should be in strong consideration that the Eagles have to come away with a wide receiver by the end of day 2. Yes. Because with how stacked this class is, you're going to have such good, talented wide receivers fall consistently.
Just based off of being in the class.
Based off of the class is so full of talented wide receivers. If you're talking about, Brinks keeps saying like best player available. If you want to consider best player available, wide receiver is going to be in that conversation in rounds 2 and 3. There's so many good ones. So
June 1's a big date as well. Like guys get cut June 1. Like there's going to be another wave of free agency after the draft.
As there always is. Yeah.
You got to keep that in mind when you're supposed to be going best player available. So you're going to pigeon yourself into some stupid pick because you think you need that. And then, oh, wow, well, this guy fits perfect and he got cut by whoever, because they can't afford him after June 1st. You got to go best available player in the draft.
Yeah.
This is why teams miss.
Best player available at any position of need. That is how I always phrase it. You look at all your needs. You lay them out there, then who is the best player at any of those positions and take them. So
Like,
Angry Bear says Xavier Worthy. I don't know. For me, I know we had this conversation a few weeks ago, Brinks. I don't think Pete, you were on here, but I have a second round grade on Worthy, so I'd be good with him in round 2 or 3, not round 1.
I like that guy.
I
like AD.
I love me some AD Mitchell. Love it.
Yeah, I like Mitchell. I like Mitchell and Brian Thomas over Worthy.
Same.
Well, you gotta be encouraged with how we look compared to the division, right? I mean, Dallas didn't do anything.
Nope.
The Giants stink, and Washington.
They're
last
trying.
I read about Washington, they're taking JJ McCarthy at 2. So good luck to you on that one. So
if they do that
can't be real. Oh my god! If they do that, I swear to God.
I don't know, man. Like these, like, because remember Mac Jones was going to go 2, and then everyone said John Lynch was stupid, and he backed off and took.
Well, he still was stupid because either one of the people that he could have took in that draft are no longer on that roster. So
I forget who he picked.
All that quarterback class.
He took Trey Lance. Remember?
Yeah,
that's right, Trey Lance. Yeah,
he took Trey Lance,
and they went with Brock Purdy.
And they went with Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Rudy Poo, Giants Commanders fighting for JJ McCarthy. Yeah, that's funny. Before we leave, we had like last 4 minutes. Quick thoughts. I know this is probably going to be a long. This really shouldn't be a long conversation, but quick thoughts on the new rule banning the hip drop tackle. I don't like it. I understand why, but I think the implementation and the execution of said rule is going to be a big mess because there's no consistency. There's no I want to be convinced, but I don't see how a defensive player can legitimately tackle a ball carrier now when they're from behind. Like it's not realistic for people to ask a defensive player, "Oh, don't swivel, don't leave your feet." It's a game of momentum, guys. Like you're running at.
I think you're gonna have guys just going low or try to trip people. That's it.
And if the thing is, defenders will go low, and then fans are going to call them dirty for going low, and then the league is going to ban low hits. Like I understand safety. I just think this is such a convoluted way of executing this rule. I don't think I'm all for compromise. And I want this to work out to where there's less injuries. I just don't think this is it. I think this is going to be a huge mess. And I feel bad for defensive players, but I don't know what you guys think about it.
If I play defense, I'd quit. I'd retire and quit. You know what? And like offensive guys, like if you don't want to get hit and you're scared of getting hurt, go sit in a cubicle and sell insurance and make $50,000 a year. I'm sick of this nonsense, softness. Like, you get paid a lot of money because your job's risky. I'm a UPS driver. I make more than most people because, my job's hard. It's risky. I can get hurt. It's very
dodging
physical.
dogs every day.
Yeah, man. Dude, I almost got tore up the other day. It was crazy. But you know what? Like if you don't want to take a risk, do something. There's jobs out there for you. This is America. You can do whatever you want. But if you want to step up and make the money, like you got to take a risk. It's called inherent risk. It's an actual legal term called inherent risk. If you don't want CTE, fine. Don't play professional football. If you don't want to dislocate your hip and get hip drop tackled or whatever they call it, cool. Don't play football. You don't have to. No one's forcing you to play football. Like
it's weird. It's just weird. Like,
just tell us it's flag football. Just change it to flag football. Just change.
And it's like they didn't introduce anything to say. Okay, they told us everything that it wasn't. They didn't give us an alternative for defensive players to do this. Even we saw A2D alum Marcus Thomas. He said, like, I don't remember getting hit drop tackle when I played. That's cool. Then maybe Troy Vincent and the boys should have went back to that tape and said, hey, this is the technique we use in tackling from behind, and then pass that along, right? Because somehow, like I don't remember seeing 10, 15 years ago hip drop tackles like that. I remember seeing the Roy Williams horse collar tackles, and now you started to see less of those. But the athletes are bigger, they're faster, the running backs are bigger, faster, stronger now. It's just a little bit different, and it's just I don't know what they want these guys to do, but I mean, like you said, we could be 10 years from now talking about flag football, and I'm pretty sure the three of us won't be doing this.
Real time, defensive players, they have to just get the ball carrier down. And I feel like they have to do it any certain way. But I feel like with this rule, they're saying, okay, you have to run with the offensive player, and you have to just run with them to bring them down. Like you're gonna see if defensive players are gonna try to not do this hip drop tackle, you're gonna see 5-yard gains turn into 8 to 10-yard gains because they can't stop these offensive players anymore in their tracks. Like they're gonna have to. It's just here's the thing. And before we head out, like you've got this assumption that all these defensive players are intentionally doing this. I don't think it's intentional. And Chris Long talked about it. It's not intentional. They're just trying in the heat of the moment to get the ball carried down. So I don't know if we're going to see a decrease in hip drop tackles to the degree that the league is expecting. So if you're not going to see a decrease in it, all you're doing is leading to more fines and penalties for defensive players. I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't look good right now. I have concerns.
This is one guy too. Mark Andrews, he broke his hip last year. He's a pretty good player.
There were more.
Right?
But there were more. Yeah.
It's one major injury. We're just changing the whole thing, making it like, okay, Roger. Okay, cool.
You know how it's an overreaction league, man. And offense sells ratings, not defense. So
And then I don't know. I don't really quite understand what they're doing with the kickoffs, but dude, just give the team the ball on the 25.
We'll touch on that.
Don't even do it.
Don't even do it. I like the new rule.
So for the boy Brinks, for the kid Chucks, it's your boy OGP, A2D. Eagles Talk Monday night, once again brought to you by Bodger's Bread, located in Mount Laurel. You read it, you can read the rest, 10% A2D radio. Mention this to get that off. Until next Monday night, we will be right back here. Same A2D time, say A2D channel. Peace.